Hi, everybody. I don't know if my mic's working. Oh, yeah, it is working. It's kind of cool. I am getting ready to record the podcast today. And I had no idea what I was going to talk about this morning. Like, Wednesday's usually a how-to day. I woke up and I was like, yeah, I don't know. And so hopped on MeWe in the MeWe chat, the morning chat, and wanted to hear about. And now I have more show ideas than I will ever know what to do with at this point. So I actually wrote them down, and I'm likely to cover some of these in future episodes. But the one we're covering today are 6 lifestyle changes to make in a post-COVID-19 world. Sorry to talk about the disease again. But, there are some things we can learn from this. And I think having just heard that stay at home is extended, like right after I got off my podcast Monday, which was supposed to be our last day of stay at home in Tennessee, governor extended it through April 30th. So that leaves a lot of people wondering what to do. So anyway, thanks for joining us. I see there are 2 of you here. Hi, 2 people. I'm going to jump into recording the podcast today. You'll see me producing, and there are some segments that only I will hear because of these. Because I've got a surprise for listeners. The Booze Whisperer returned and gave me a recipe, so I'm kind of excited. It's actually something that I can't figure out how to do it alcohol free unless you can get the spirits he refers to. But you could do something kind of like it alcohol free, but it's a pretty good recipe. It was sparked by somebody making a mistake making lavender jelly. So I'll share that. When I put it in, like when you see me editing, I'll also tell you kind of what it is, but I don't have a good way to let you hear that segment here. So with that, I'm going to jump into the podcast. Oh, stop. My audio is messed up. So now what I have to do, I don't even know what I have to do. Why are you going through their audio? Oh, the Mac. So it's coming out of my computer, not coming out of my headphone, but this is coming out of my headphone, and it's kind of, if I get that close to the mic, it's a problem. So I'm just going to make sure. Output is not where it needs to be. There you go. Input is where it needs to be. Okay, cool. Let's try this again. You got to hear Pat Riley sing Living Free in Tennessee, though. I'll put that over there. Nope, still not working. You probably can't tell if you're watching this, but it's totally not working. Now we go into GarageBand, and I go Preferences. Audio. Built-in output. No, I want you to come through my headphones. Oh, it's installing something. Woo! Okay, now we got it. See, this is what I face. Here's my problem. When I started this, my red Solo box, it's actually a Focusrite. It's not a red Solo box, but it's Focusrite is the brand, and it's the Scarlet Solo box is what I was using, and now I have one that allows 2 inputs. I forget what it's called. Scarlet 2i2. Solo box is way more memorable. If it's not plugged in when I launch GarageBand's like, I guess we'll use the built-in stuff. And then if I say no, it won't use any audio. So I had said yes, and I thought it had switched, but it had not. Okay. Well, anyway, I know that track needs to be a little louder, and we're going to try it a 3rd time. Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, everyone. Today is Wednesday, April 15, not 16. I wrote down in my show notes 16, but it's the 15th of April, 2020. Your taxes are due. Your taxes are due, except for because of COVID, apparently your taxes aren't due. But if you don't file your taxes, and like me, you haven't done your 2018s, your taxes are due. Because if you want them to know where to send your tax refund of $1,200 that you're getting due to COVID, you would probably need them to know that you have an earning level of under $75,000 a year and where to send it. That's kind of what's up. So it's tax day for some of us, not tax day for others. but it should be. Boy, I'll tell you what, a lesson I've really learned this year is about keeping the thing I tell you guys is to always keep up on your finances. Well, I didn't in 2018. And then in 2019, I implemented a system using QuickBooks. And I like QuickBooks, except for I don't like QuickBooks right now. It didn't work. And so what I've done in the last couple of weeks, and in particular over the weekend and Monday, is I've had to go through every transaction in every bank account I have in spreadsheets because QuickBooks wasn't doing what I needed it to do. It's like predictive learning was learning wrong, and then I was going to have to go through in QuickBooks and wait for each transaction to load in their online system. Um, so I brought things into a spreadsheet where I can just go line, 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 line. And I had to tag if it was an expense, what kind of expense, and which business it goes to. Not a big deal if you keep up on that every month, but I hadn't like realized that QuickBooks had gone errant on me. And so when I looked at my finances going into tax season, I was like, well, crap, I've got a mess to clean up. The second mistake I made, of course, was that last year, my businesses were defined separately, and this year I've brought them into one computer for a materials tax 3 different times, right? So it's just been simplified. And anyway, tax day being a sore spot for me, so is sitting through spreadsheets like tagging things if it's a meals and travel expense or a mileage expense. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So I went through more than 1,600 transactions. Yeah. Now I just have one bank account, one credit card that goes to my business, and it's super easy. So I'm glad I simplified that. And, please learn from my mistake. If you're starting a business, make sure you have a dedicated checking account for it. Make sure you have one credit card that you use if you're going to use a credit card, and find a system that isn't going to go crazy with its predictive learning and code all your stuff wrong. Because and then, like, check it once a month minimum to make sure stuff is right. Because otherwise you end up with this huge task at the end of the year, and it's just no good. And, that's one of those things I've always known, but I had learned it the hard way in 2018. And then 2019, I thought I had it nailed, and I didn't. And I wasn't double checking. And yeah, it was a fun one. So that's all been sparked by the day of the month, which is April 15th, 2020. This is episode 295 of Living Free in Tennessee. And today, as I said, I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. So I went over onto the MeWe chat and I said, what do y'all want to hear about? And there are a lot of good ideas over there. Some of them are better Monday show topics, and some of them are better Friday show topics. They tried to get me to go on a political rant today, and I probably will on Friday for a thought of the walk. But Mr. Ish posited a good question, and he was asking, what changes would you recommend making on the homestead if you know that you need to prepare to be home for like 4 weeks all at one time? And it's in light of our extension for stay-at-home orders on through April 30th. And I thought, well, that's a great question. It's very homestead specific, though. So let's take a bigger picture view. And what lifestyle changes, fundamental lifestyle changes, should everyone be considering making right now after having lived through this experience of being told to stay home, seeing our jobs melt away, starting to watch businesses shutter forever, right? And moving into that the perception that we're now going to find it appropriate to shut down the country when diseases roll through. I don't want to discount the seriousness of COVID, but at the same time, it has turned out not to be as bad as they thought it would, and that's a good thing. We should be glad of that. However, there's going to be another disease. There's going to be another pandemic that comes through, and we've now set the precedent that we shut everything. It's kind of like locally when we have snow coming in through Tennessee. Before the snow even comes, the schools shut. And what they're trying to do is make sure no kids are at risk. Well, sometimes what happens is the snow, because of where we are, goes up into Kentucky, and does not come here, and you end up with a snow day and no snow on the ground. And so we really need to find a balance between how do we secure our people and when are we overreacting. And we have set a foundation in our society of people expecting to be taken care of, first of all, by the government. And secondly, just a huge fear of the unknown. And that fear is leading to people wanting to trade their liberties, which, some people are like, yeah, I want grandma to live and take some of my liberties. And I get it. But at the same time, we won't know until this is all over if that has been something that we have honestly done or not. We're not going to know for probably a year when we look at the data, but we do know this. That curve that you see of infections is going down, and that's awesome. Awesome, awesome. So anyway, that's what today's show is about. It's also Wednesday, so it's Holler Hat Wednesday, and I want to know where you think she's at and what you think she's doing. Last week, of course, she was collecting a bee swarm. That's right. Holler Hat was collecting a bee swarm, which we did catch. It took 2 tries. Monday, they swarmed. Monday night, they went back home to their other hive. 2 queens can live in a hive together, as it turns out, for a little while. Tuesday, they did nothing. Wednesday, they swarmed again. And so then I got a shot of her with the swarm of bees. Now, my bees are jerks and they sting. But when they swarm, they don't sting. So I was able to get right up there with the hat, and it made a pretty good picture. A couple of other announcements. I talked on Monday about putting together a side hustle working group for y'all who may or may not have lost your income and are now looking for ways to spike up your income. And it's called the Side Hustle Working Group. I have set up a way for you to automatically sign up so I don't have to go back and forth with you, because I didn't want to put this out there and then be handling email inquiries for the next 3 weeks of my life. So I've opened up through April 30th, which is the duration of our stay at home, a way to register. The link to that is in a couple of places. One, it's in the show notes for this episode 295. 2, if you are signed up for my email, either the daily email or my monthly email, which is over at livingfreeintennessee.com, I have sent out an email about that. I am stopping the recording because my dog is barking, and I will be right back. I'm going to go shut my second door. I think what's happening is neighbors are coming for food. Sage, go. And that is the fun of recording, is you get to sure you heard Cece going nuts. So my neighbor's dog, Cece, doesn't like my neighbor's dog when she comes to our house. If we're on a walk and she sees my neighbor's dog, they play, they have a good time. But I had just told them before I was recording that soup is available in the fridge to be heated up for lunch, and they're probably hungry by now. It's about noon. And hello from London, UK. Hello back from Tennessee. Anyway. Whew. Okay. So if you're over on Instagram looking for the Holler Hat picture, I haven't taken it yet. Right after this podcast, I'm going to go out and take it and post it, because that's my MO on a Wednesday. I'm going to get back into announcements, though. We have a lot of announcements today. The email has really good links in it today. The next announcement is that we have a Thursday webinar every Thursday at 12 Central that we're doing all month long, free to any membership level, just because I know a lot of you guys are home. And this week's subject is how to launch your garden in 2020, your spring garden. If you hadn't thought about doing a garden and now you're like, I'm going to do a garden, we have 4 ways. PM Central Time. And here's how you get signed up. There is a product on my website. If you go to the homepage in the upper right-hand corner, there is a registration button. You can buy it. If you're a member, though, you get it for free. You should just go to livingfreeintennessee.com and click, log into your membership. I've made this easier than it was. You used to have to use a coupon code. Coupon codes still work. If you want to do that, you can do that. But if you just log in, there is a link in the welcome message on the page that you see when you log in, and it goes straight to the webinar and it launches. So if you go there and do that now, you're going to launch the webinar and there's not going to be anybody there. But if you do it tomorrow around noon, you will see the Tactical Redneck and I as we walk you through 4 ideas. We're also going to share some different plants that we think that you may want to try if you're a beginning gardener, just because it's always nice to have success your first year. You know what I mean? Okay, so that's the webinar this week. Finally, tomorrow at 7 p.m., we're keeping this month, we're doing a weekly live stream from the Holler Neighbors. This is Tactical Redneck, Nighthawk, and I kind of sit on the couch and we take your questions. But last week I thought, well, we should have a topic each time because sometimes y'all aren't quite ready to ask questions when we start. So we're going to discuss what 5 weeks has looked like with no grocery store visits. So we've done 5 weeks, no grocery store visits, and we're going to just talk to you about that. And I'll give you a little spoiler alert here. We got access to some groceries yesterday. So we're also going to tell you like what we're really excited to eat this week that we haven't had around. And you may be surprised at what that is. Finally, over on MeWe.com, there is a group, Living Free in Tennessee. If you go over there and apply, we let you into the group. Do your best to answer the questions. Sometimes if you haven't been listening for the podcast long, you may not know what's on my roof. Just think what might be on my roof. And we'll let you in as long as you don't have pornographic content in your profile picture. Sorry to the person who had that. Just not going to work. But we have chats in the morning, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7:30 to 8. But really what's going on these days over there is they go through high points and low points every day of chat. And it's kind of cool. And that's where I went to get the idea for today's show. It's a really great way to connect with the Living Free in Tennessee network. Okay, with that, it's time for our first segment of the Wednesday show, and that's Stump the Sauce. Stump the Sauce. Well, actually, today we're not stumping the sauce. We're going to share side hustle ideas from Farmer Harry. Farmer Harry is pretty active in our network, and he is a people empowerer. And he sent me a message saying, feel free to share any of these ideas. He has ideas about ways to earn money, ways to tap into what's going on. So he sent me 5 ideas. And the first one is to go to local feed and seed store, get an inventory of their bulk seeds for sale, post ads on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and Nextdoor, and then take orders and let people ship every Wednesday. Let people take orders for you to like ship or deliver every Wednesday. And then you go buy the seed and you mail it out and or deliver it in a sterile way after payments received. So in this way, you don't have to put money out to buy the seed. You see what's there. And then you take orders and then you ship the seed. He says, search the internet for planting information on each kind of plant. I think that's a great idea, right? There are a lot of people looking for seeds. And now if you go to seed places online, some of them are out. And right now you can send seeds. I actually have a coffee customer who's in Michigan who was kind of upset because they still want some more seeds for their spring garden. And they do a spring garden every single year, right? And they're like, well, we have enough tomatoes, but maybe, it'd be good if we had more. And I said, well, do you care what kind? Because I can just tuck some of my extra seeds in your order. And I did because it's easy. And I collect seeds for my tomatoes. So I had extra seeds. Well, there's a real opportunity to connect people with some of these basic gardening things that are hard to come by right now. Because it kind of seems like the cycle right now is somebody says, whoa, we're running out of seeds. And then everybody runs and buys seeds. Oh, we're running out of toilet paper, and everybody runs and buys toilet paper. Oh, meat plants are shutting down, and everybody runs out and buys meat, right? That's kind of how people are behaving right now. And if you look at it and you get creative, you'll find out we're not really running out of a lot of things. It's just not in the format they're used to getting it in, right? Like the reason you have dairy farms dumping milk on the ground is they're used to providing raw milk for wholesale use. They're not allowed to sell raw milk to me unless I own a herd share because the FDA decided they needed to get involved in my food choices. Okay, well, that's why they're dumping milk out on the ground because they're not set up to pasteurize it and package it in neat little gallon containers, right? Okay, his next idea is plant cuttings. Take cuttings off plants, bushes, and trees if you have them, root them in water. And then he says the Jack's Hydro system works well for that. If you don't know who Jack is, he is Jack Spirko over at the Survival Podcast. He and I have really been into working with Kratky aquaponics this year, hydroponics this year, and he got me into aquaponics to begin with. And what we found is that doing seedlings hydroponically really, really sparks growth. Like I have 18-inch tall tomato plants that are 4 weeks old right now from seed. That's 4 weeks from seed. They're huge. So you can pot them up and sell them to locals or barter them for different things. Ideas for plants you can do this with would be elderberry. I've got like 50 elderberry plants, by the way, just rooted offshoots in the ground. I could do that with willow, mulberry, sumac, plum, etc. This is something that if you've already put these things in your homestead, you can do. Okay, next idea, homestead distance learning for the local community. This is something that you can do by digitally through Zoom, like I did with the cheese class, right? You just offer a webinar, sell the webinar, teach them how to do canning, teach them how to do sauerkraut making, teach them how to do pantry management, teach them how to do making kombucha, teach them how to make elderberry syrup, teach them how to make fry bread, teach them how to make sourdough bread. Like, even if you're not a homesteader, if you know how to make cookies, you can launch something. Like literally on Airbnb experiences, I saw a cookie making class for $20. $20 and you bring your own materials and she does it digitally. And I thought, well, that's kind of a cool idea. Canning things is big, drying things is big, making tomato sauce, making a specific kind of meal. I just did a quick little overview of how to make meatloaf on YouTube. Like 2-minute thing. Like here's a bowl of meat and you go squish, 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 and you bake it. Like that's meatloaf. I've had a lot of interaction on that. And it's meatloaf. Like people don't know how to do stuff, guys, and you can totally tap into that. You can either do it for free and try to turn it into ad revenue, or you can charge charge money for it. So examine what you can teach others, okay? And then the last idea is be a matchmaker. If you are tapped into your local food and you are tapped into your local community, and you know that Farmer Smith has lettuce, and you know that person Jones wants lettuce, boom, make that connection. Make that connection. You could even like an idea I had was to put together a local box in my county and get stuff from farmers and put some of my coffee in it and get stuff from a local meat maker and say, okay, once a week subscription box. And this is, when we're allowed to gather again, this is how you pick it up at the farmer's market. But until then, I'm dropping it at your door, $50 a week or whatever that price is. Right. And then if you want to put it over the top, you do recipes like, here's a recipe for how to use the squash that's in your box or how to use the kale that's in your box, right? You can connect people with food, but you can also connect them with livestock and other things. So it doesn't just have to be local food. It can be livestock, it can be masks, it can be anything, right? Just look around. So those are some of his thoughts on immediate opportunities. With that, it's time for our next segment, and that's Tales from the Booze Whisperer. For those of you new-ish to the podcast, I don't think I've had a Booze Whisperer segment since the fall. And we used to kind of get one once a week, and then the Booze Whisperer got really, really, really busy. So the Booze Whisperer is a friend of mine, and part of why we're friends is, well, I mean, we like each other, but I started traveling for work a lot, and I started posting a picture of an evening cocktail, which is the way I celebrated the end of my day. And so we started getting into cocktail picture wars online, and people enjoyed that. And then I was like, well, and honestly, he makes better cocktails than I do. He's really good at it. And so I started saying, well, let's get, recipe ideas out here for different ways we can do cocktails and mocktails. And then one of my listeners who British redneck, I think it was, decided to make lavender jelly. And what you do is you collect all the blossoms from the lavender flowers and you infuse them into liquid. And you probably had lemon juice. I don't know because I haven't made it. So just don't quote me on this. Basically, you get the flavor out of the petals and you add pectin and sugar. And there's probably apple juice or something in there. I don't know. Please chime up, you guys, if you know what it is. And then you process it like jelly and then you spread it on bread. And I've never even tried it, but I've heard it's pretty good. Every year I think I'm going to do it. And then I look at the lavender flowers and I go, yep, there they are. And I don't harvest them and I don't do it. Maybe I'll do it next year because it's already past prime here. So anyway, he did this and his jelly didn't set up. That happens sometimes. If your pectin is old, that can happen. If you went off recipe and didn't do the right amount of sugar, that can happen. Like there are different reasons that can just happen. You did a big batch instead of, one that I've found with jellies and jams. If I do more than a double batch at a time, it doesn't set up right. Don't know why, even though the ratios are the same. And he was gonna toss it, and I was like, "No. No, what you've got is lavender syrup. I bet that'd be great in cocktails." And he's like, "Recipe ideas?" That was 2 weeks ago. So, I tracked down the booze whisperer today and asked him what he would do with lavender syrup, so I'm gonna inject that recording right now. So, Mr. Booze Whisperer, what have you to say about lavender syrup? Okay, this is where the people doing the live watching of this get to watch me edit in a segment. Woohoo! So, basically, I'm gonna tell you what he did, and I didn't see him going this way, but once he went this way, I thought it was pretty cool. He basically said, "Take, um, what is it called? Bailey's, so like an Irish cream, doesn't have to be Bailey's brand, and you mix just a tiny bit of maraschino cherry juice, like a little bit, so, in a mason jar." And he said it would work better in a quart than a pint mason jar. You mix it in there and you shake the crap out of it, so that what you're doing is you're basically whipping up that stuff into a foam. So it's almost like foaming milk. I don't know if you've ever seen, they make milk foamers that have a pump handle that you can heat up the milk, put it in there and foam the milk if you don't have one of those things, the espresso maker. So anyway, you shake it up and then you take the violet syrup and you put, some of that in the bottom of a tall, narrow glass. You carefully layer on top of that you shake the foam and you put a little bit of that foam on. And then on top of that, you put some Kahlua, and what you end up is a drink that's striped in color, and it looks beautiful because you got that violet color at the bottom. You've got sort of this red color, and you've got this dark brown color of Kahlua. And then he was like, kind of like a bruise. So we're like, what should we name this? Like the you know, the violent violet bruiser, or the bruise, or yeah, I don't. We're not sure what to call it, but y'all can tell me what you think it should be called. But it sounded like super tasty. Okay, so what I'm doing here, and this is when my live viewers can ask me questions and I can actually answer without messing up the podcast. Um, is I'm copying the audio file over, and then I have to listen to it, and then iTunes is gonna like totally like take over my whole computer. That's really cool. Sometimes iTunes is in the like the other thing I don't like about Macs is the mail program. I don't use their mail program. I don't want to use the mail program. I just do all my email online. Anyway, it'll launch mail and I'll be like, dang it. And then I have to get it to exit. It takes a resource. Anyway, someday I'll fix that. Okay. So now we're editing. Yeah. So now it's asking me about color. Okay. So like this whole first segment, this came to me in 2 segments. First segment, not playing it. It's just him asking like some questions about violet syrup. And then we're going to go to segment 2, which is called segment 1 because I don't know how to name my stuff right. And he came up with a really good idea. Like, I now want to make one. I think I have some Irish cream. Okay, here we go. Confection. He's so good at making cocktails. You don't even know. I have to now I have to go make violet syrup so I can show up with some at his house. Almost done, guys. Okay, the COVID Bruiser is now in here, and then I split There was a lot of banter afterwards about what to name it that I'm not going to play for y'all because I don't think you're interested in it. So now we get back into the podcast. And I think, so at this point, when I'm recording the podcast, for those of you who kind of wonder how we do this, I think, okay, we just ended and I have to say something in response to this person. And then I have to go into my next segment, which means I better know what it is. And the next segment is what's up in the garden. So now I'm actually ready to transition because if you don't get transitions in your mind before you start, um, all sorts of crazy can happen on your podcast. But I'll tell you this, if you do what I did just then and you edit as you go, rather than get all of these different segments and assemble them, or if you make a mistake, you go back and you fix it, you're way better off on time. So here we go. Ooh, that sounds tasty. And now I'm tempted to try one at home. We'll see if I can get that together. Although I'll probably use elderberry syrup instead of um, violet syrup. And I called it lavender syrup on the way into this. It's violet, not lavender. Um, Anyway, I'll probably try it with some elderberry syrup because I don't have violet syrup and I don't have flowers to make it with. Okay, next segment is what's up in the garden, and the answer is everything is up in the garden right now. That's why we're doing this how to start your garden this spring webinar tomorrow. But the last round of planting seeds for round 1 are going in now. So things that go in warm weather like squash and beans and that sort of stuff, we're putting them in a little early right now on purpose. And we're not putting all the seeds out. We're just putting some of the seeds out so that if for some reason they come up and fail, we can do another round. And then with green beans, you can just keep going about every 2 to 3 weeks and you end up with a really nice cycle of green beans. So that's happening. And I will be transplanting my tomatoes on Thursday. Yeah, tomorrow and Friday, because we're getting our last freeze date is yesterday. We're having a freeze again tonight, and then it looks warm for the next couple weeks. What's interesting about Tennessee, though, is you can end up with more freezes, right? And like my first year here, April 21st was 16 degrees. That's how cold it was. So anything I put out right now, I'm kind of putting out in a way where I could bring it back in if I have to, or I can secure it, which brings me to the next thing. How do you protect your plants if it's freezing? And this question was asked on MeWe this morning too. What I do is I just cover them with a shower curtain that's clear. And I kind of hold it up above them a little bit so the frost doesn't get on them, or I take a bed sheet. I just cover them and hope for the best. Most of what's up right now is frost hardy anyway. Once my tomatoes go out, though, if there's going to be a frost, I'll take them back in, or I'll cover them, or I might even here's what a friend of mine does, covers them with plastic and then takes tea lights and puts tea lights under there. So there's enough air that the tea lights aren't going to melt the plastic, and then lights the tea lights to get just a little bit of heat in there. Another thing I've done is put a lamp with a light bulb if I had power. Other things people do on bigger crops like trees is move the air with big fans. We had a late frost one year, and people who grow wine in Tennessee were hiring helicopters to fly over all night, moving the air just to keep that frost from hitting the plant and damaging it. That's how I protect them. But the biggest thing you can do is bring it back inside if you have the kind of planting set up where you can for some of those sensitive plants, and then do your best to wait till after the last frost to move them out. And here in Tennessee, that may not, technically it's April 15th, but May 1st is way safer. Personally, I do play a little bit of garden roulette on purpose where I'm prepared to cycle out things later in the season if I have to, but I get some stuff out early. And if my protective measures don't work, I just, okay, the plant died. Here's another one, right? Here's another one. You get ready to do a second cycle. And that's how you deal with the fact that Tennessee's really on the border of sort of cold push downs from the north and heat push ups from the south. We're in this stripe where my zone, I'm within, I think, 10 miles of 3 different planting zones. Well, that means that they're not hard lines. It just kind of depends on the year, right? Which one it's going to act like. And so you got to be ready to be a little flexible. Other than that, I have a second round of strawberries I'm putting in on Thursday because it's going to freeze tonight. And my greens are looking great. I'm going to harvest more salad tomorrow. I've kind of figured out that 40 lettuce plants are about what we want here in volume of lettuce, which seems like a lot, but they're little. They're little plants, and I take the leaves off from the outside so I can plant them fairly densely. And by doing that, I get several cuttings off of each plant until it looks like it's going to bolt, and then I need to be ready to replace a plant. I have been starting lettuce every 2 weeks, but I had a whole tray fail last week. So I may have to start doing it once a week if I'm going to keep this cycle going through the summer. And of course, in the summer, guys, my lettuce won't be outside. Like, I'm getting a lot off the aquaponics system. That's all going to die back. It's going to be replaced by Thai water spinach and Malabar spinach and some heat loving things, right? And then lettuce will be grown either under shade-ish in my front part of my house that's covered outside, like the screened-in porch area, or I'll have my indoor lettuce growing system because that's how much I like lettuce. And, it's been a sort of a sad thing every year when the lettuce ends. This year, I think the lettuce doesn't have to end, and I'm kind of excited about it. And then, yeah, and then she makes a mistake and hits pause again on her podcast and goes and looks for the and then she cuts it out. You guys having fun watching this live stream today? I don't usually make this many mistakes, but my head's not right today. Not only that, I said, I mean, I know I say sometimes, but I don't say as much as I've been saying it today. Holy cow. It's just not my best day. Hopefully you guys like the content I get into later. I try not to get too political, but man, this situation's scary. So it's just like it. Not good at all. There's the end then. I get to cut out an anyway. Ha. It's as if it never happened. I used to go back to interviews and cut out people's ums. I don't do that anymore. I've spent like 3 hours cutting out ums for a 45-minute interview. I was like, not sure anybody cares about the ums that much. Not sure they care at all. Okay. Well, I'm glad you guys are liking the lives because I'm just telling you out loud like the things that are going through my head all the time. So that's what's up in the garden. With that, it's time for the main topic of the show: 6 fundamental changes to make post-COVID. This started as 5 fundamental changes, and then I had one more idea that I thought was pretty darn important, so it became 6. And there are different perspectives on what we should do in a post-COVID world, and we're calling it a post-COVID world, which gives it even more credence as a thing, right? So we have, as a society and as a world, have made this a thing. And, at first when I thought about this topic, I was like, yeah, food security, like add pigs, add chickens, learn how to grow food in your kitchen, like blah, 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 blah. But then I thought, you know what? That's not really right. There are 6 fundamental lifestyle changes we should be thinking about making if we haven't already made them. And it's not just if you have land where you can grow food and raise animals, but it should be fundamental changes, big picture, for all of society. And so I got the question homestead specific, and I thought, in a city, we should be making the same changes that we're making on a homestead. It just may look a little differently. Like, having enough to get by if you have to stay home might mean you have 2 bottles of shampoo instead of 1, depending on how much shampoo you go through a month. Or having, more food production in the country, or even adding some ornamental plants with edibles. You can totally do that in a nice suburban area, HOA sort of thing. You could add a beautiful, beautiful peach tree and keep it trimmed. You could add blueberry bushes. They're very pretty. They have pretty flowers. And if you keep them under control, like, who cares if it's blueberries? There are lots of things you can do that fit into wherever or whatever lifestyle you've chosen to have. And I thought, it's better to think about the quote unquote post-COVID world from this perspective rather than tell everybody they need to go back to the land and become homesteaders, because that's just not realistic. Nor would we really want that. Like, that would really change the world if everybody became homesteaders. It would be really hard to homestead too. So I think this is a lifestyle decision, and it's a lifestyle decision to decide you need to be responsible for yourself. It's a fundamental shift in how you evaluate how you're going to take care of yourself, right? Many of us have thought the best way to be responsible for myself is to earn money and buy a house and be able to buy the things I need and be able to put my kids through college and be able to retire. And a lot of that looks like getting as high of a paying job you can get to earn as much money so you can sock it away and be able to do the things you want to do. And then this happens, and people are watching their jobs melt down. And what's interesting about watching the jobs melt down is the kind of jobs that are melting down, right? We have service industry jobs melting down, of course, because you can't be one-on-one in a restaurant as wait staff or a chef if people can't go to the restaurants. But you're also now starting to see those higher paying professional jobs furlough employees. Now, furlough is a fancy word for I think I'm going to hire you back, but they might not. Because what's going to happen now, depending on the amount of economic need after things quote unquote open up again, is employers are going to take a good look at their employee list. And on that employee list, there are always people where you're like, that person wasn't very productive. Maybe we just shouldn't bring them back. And we have a perfect excuse to not bring them back because, hey, revenue's down, right? That's going to happen. I think some employers are seeing that they had people on staff doing things they didn't really need done. And our world has been going through increased automation of things through artificial intelligence and software and the internet and all of these things that happen, right? And it's already been on the precipice of not needing as many people in the workforce as we have. And this situation might just accelerate that progress. Like I thought we were 5 years out. We now might be seeing a stark impact of having shut everything down when it opens up, realizing we don't need what we had. And that's really an interesting place to be. And so if you're going to make that decision that you want to set up your lifestyle to take care of yourself, to be responsible for your own well-being rather than to depend on others or the government for support, it's a bigger deal than just get a job and make as much money as possible, right? I mean, hopefully that works, but getting a job and make as much money as possible may not work if the jobs aren't there, if the jobs change. And so now we talk about becoming more of a resilient person. And so if you're just sort of facing this for the first time, first, you're asking the question, which is great, and I'm proud of you. If you're asking that question, or if you've already been asking that question, you're way ahead of everybody else who's just scared right now. And if you see people start to ask this question, the reason I'm giving you 6 things is that you can help start to empower them to also start taking steps and to know what they can do. Because when somebody asks the question, even if you're like, "You idiot, you should have been doing it," if that's what you're thinking in your head, don't say that in your out loud voice, right? It's time to empower others right now. If we just denigrate people, we foment more fear. More fear means more problems in our economy. So it's time for us to become the empowerers. So these are my 6 things. And I'm hoping, guys, as you listen to this, you come up with your own ideas and share them with me because there are more than 6 things you can do. But we're talking here big picture. You're making a lifestyle decision that you want to be able to take care of yourself because you've realized the world may or may not take care of me, right? The buck stops with you, right? So the first one, and this is just a basic foundational thing that is so easy to say and so hard to do. And that is eliminate debt and save money. It's so simple, isn't it? No debt and savings. If you came into this 4 weeks off, which is turning into 6 weeks off, right? And you had enough money to pay your expenses for 1 year, and then you got furloughed, you're a whole lot less worried right now than if you came into this with debt and only enough savings for a couple of weeks, and your mortgage is now due. And no matter how many times we give this recommendation, the problem with this recommendation is that it's simple to say and hard to do. It's kind of like freedom. Freedom is not hard. It's very simple. Freedom means that you are responsible for yourself, that you can do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting other people, right? And nobody should get in your way. And if they don't like what you're doing, they can just look the other way. Like if it's not hurting them, why is it any of their business? Well, the problem is we're a bunch of busybodies and we want to make things our business, right? And that's why freedom takes work. It takes discipline. Well, so does eliminating debt and saving money. And many of you who listen to the show have been on the journey of eliminating debt and saving money, and that's great, and you're not done yet, and then this hit, and now you're like, "I'm about to go into more debt because I gotta feed my family, and I don't have the savings to do it, so now I'm using the credit card." You know what? That's terrible. That feels terrible, especially if you've been on the journey to eliminate debt and save money. But if that's what gets you through this, that's what gets you through this right now. And there's certain pragmatism. However, the minute this ends, the minute you're back to work, eliminate debt and save money even more vigorously, right? If you've already eliminated your debt or you never got it to begin with, I'm also very proud of you. Um, and you save money to get through this, try not to spend too much right now because you don't know what you're going to need on the other side, right? But keep that habit and help empower other people around you who ask questions about how you got where you are. Empower them to do it. I can tell you the one thing that's gotten me the furthest in all of this, and I'll see if I can show you. I can't. I removed my pile. I have a pile of credit cards, usually right here in my desk drawer, right under my checkbook. And those credit cards represent debts that I acquired that I should not have. And the first way I stopped adding to my debt was I took them out of my wallet and I put them in this drawer. And a lot of people say freeze it in the freezer in water, whatever, so you can melt it if you need it. No, I just put it in my desk with the understanding with myself I would not use them. And then I kept one card in my wallet for emergency use only, or if I'm traveling, because sometimes if you rent a car when you're traveling, you need it. That made a huge difference. The second thing that made a huge difference is I went to cash to pay for my day-to-day needs, like groceries and all of that. I use a card for gas for my car because it's easier to do it at the machine, but pretty much everything went to cash. And whenever I sold something or got something, I stuffed cash in my cash box. And the pain I feel when I reach into that cash box and take out $100 bill and put it in my wallet is real. And so when cash goes in the cash box, I'm really sad to take cash out of the cash box. So then if I go to the grocery store or something, I'm thinking about like, I got $100 or I have $50 or I have $20 or whatever the bucks are I have in that. And yeah, I don't want to I don't have to reach back in that cash box again this month. So that's it. Once a month, by the way, I take out cash in one thing for that from the cash box. And that's how I pay for everything. And that has slowed me way down. I also went through all of my credit card statements on a monthly basis, looked at those subscriptions that come through and canceled them. I canceled everything I could. I went into PayPal and asked for customer support. Hey, what have I subscribed to? And I went through and I manually shut everything off so that when it comes time to renew, whatever it is, podcast membership, whatever, I would get the notice that the payment didn't go through. And then I could decide if it was in my budget. Like making those fundamental changes are different. And then the other thing that's really helped, guys, is learning these other things that I'm about to talk about because they help reduce the amount of money you need to live. But before we move on from eliminating debt and saving money, there's another thing you can do. And that's run your own business. And we talked about this on Monday. When you run your own business, money comes in, expenses come out, taxes are paid. When you work a job, money comes in, taxes are taken out, and expenses are paid. And just by changing that, you reduce the amount of money that you're paying in taxes. And you set yourself up to have more money in your pocket. And I don't know what else to say about eliminating debt and saving money other than it's a discipline and it's hard. And I tell you what, the more transparently I talk about what has happened to me, the more motivated I am every day to stick to my guns. It's hard to admit when you've been a bad money manager, but it's good to admit when you've been a bad money manager because if you start sort of a eliminate debt and save money working group of friends and family who are on board with it, they help you stay motivated. They'll be like, yeah, we'll do a picnic instead of go spend a bunch of money on, a condo rental in the Smoky Mountains or whatever. They'll be right there with you. And that's really cool because there's so many things you can do for fun that are free. And we forget that sometimes, right? Because we got to go do something dramatic. So running your own business, it may not be a good fit for you depending on what you do. Like I know people who work a full-time job that works great for them. And they cannot out of business. It's not gonna work, and they just go crazy. But right now, if you're in this situation where your income went away, this is why I have started the Side Hustle Working Group, which you can sign up for, where we are looking to empower each other to start side hustles without costing ourselves a lot of money, that start bringing some money in. Because when you start bringing that money in, you're in a much better place. Okay, second lifestyle decision, lifestyle change to make as a result of this experience. And guys, none of these are COVID specific. So COVID is what has caused people to become aware. Learn proper pantry management and reasonable food storage. People at the beginning of this whole thing, when people went out and bought a bunch of food, called that hoarding, and it really bothered me. There's a difference between running out and buying 100,000 cases of hand sanitizer so that you can sell it at an increased price later, and going out and getting a couple cubes of toilet paper because that's what it takes you for 3 months in your family, right? It's actually smart to have that stuff on hand. And so now when you're at the grocery store, if people see you buying something in bulk, there's judgment because you're hoarding. No, proper pantry management will free you up. And the way you do that is you start by journaling your pantry, right? We've talked about this, what you eat. And then you double buy things. You choose, like, if you need, if you eat top ramen, 2 packages of top ramen a week, and every week you buy 2 packages of top ramen, and you do that with everything, a whole bunch of different things in a list, and you choose top ramen to be the thing you double up on, so you have 2 weeks of that. Next week at the grocery store, you buy 4 packages of top ramen and the same amount of everything else, and you've only spent like 80 more cents than you usually would on your groceries, and now you have 2 weeks of top ramen, and when you do that a few more times, you'll have 4 weeks of top ramen, and then you move on to the next item on your list, which might be spaghetti sauce, and you might use 1 jar of spaghetti sauce a week, and then you buy 2 jars, and that costs you an extra $3 that week, so you get that going. Um, if you have the money to do it though, and you already know, you know what, a month of food is X. I have enough money for this week's groceries plus a month of food, and I'm just going to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. We shouldn't be mad at people for doing that, especially because those people now don't need to go to the store, and everybody's worried about flattening the curve, right? Yeah, people are mad because people are going out to get groceries. They were mad because people were buying too many groceries. Well, okay, what's it going to be? Do you want me to have proper pantry management and have reasonable food storage, or not? So the thing this brings you in, like, a non-COVID world, is that you can set yourself up to only have to go to the grocery store 1 time a month. Unless you're really into something that's very fresh, or, like, you don't have to go, you want to go. And if you don't have to go to the grocery store, you don't spend all that time going to the grocery store. And think about this, how long does it take you to go to the grocery store? You know how long it takes me? 25-minute drive. I'm efficient, so about 10 minutes in the grocery store, but sometimes, let's say it's a big buy, it might be 20 minutes in the grocery store, another 10 minutes checking out, another 25-minute drive. Other people take an hour in the grocery store, half an hour in the grocery store, right? Everybody, it's different, but it's like 2 hours easily. And then you take it home and you have to put it all away, and you're doing that once a week. I'll change that to once a month and make it 2.5 hours instead of 2 hours every week. And how much time did you save? Suddenly you have more time to eliminate debt, run your own business, and save money. And if you're only buying once a week, you're not impulse buying. Once a month, you're not impulse buying once a week, right? So that's kind of cool. And so proper pantry management is not hoarding. It's just the smart way to run a household. And reasonable food storage, you should be prepared for at least a month. And right now, I think you should be prepared for 3 months. Honestly, if you have, unless it's perishable that doesn't last that long, you should be ready for 3 months, and then you don't have to worry about it. If you keep 3 months on hand right now, and every once a month replenish that from the other end, like buy the stuff and load it on the right hand side of your pantry and pull things from the left hand side of your pantry, so you're eating the oldest stuff first. If they don't have something like toilet paper, or they don't have something like rice this month, you're not worried. You still got 3 months of it. In fact, somebody watching the live stream right now said they just found toilet paper for the first time in 6 weeks. and they didn't need it, yet, but it was getting low. Well, that's awesome. Good for you. You are managing your pantry well. You had enough toilet paper to get through 6 weeks without being able to buy toilet paper. Other people didn't. Other people who've been going to the bathroom at the office with those commercial rolls suddenly discovered they go through more toilet paper than they knew they did because they're home all the time. That's the other thing people didn't realize is people were buying stuff at the store, preparing to be home all the time when they usually aren't, and they get some of their basic resources other ways. So, I think part of proper pantry management is also learning how to do things from scratch, and I think there's a lot of ways you can do that online right now. Like I did a 3-part series on YouTube about how to catch wild yeast, how to start a sponge for sourdough, and how to make a loaf of sourdough bread. And that is an ultimate from scratch thing. Does that mean you should do that every single day? I mean, no, every from scratch project takes time. I don't make mayonnaise, guys. I've said it a million times. I know how to make mayonnaise. I don't make mayonnaise because it's way easier to go to the store and spend $2 on a jar of mayonnaise. Well, guess what I made last week? Mayonnaise. I've been home for 5 weeks. I don't have mayonnaise in my fridge. I wanted deviled eggs. Deviled eggs have mayonnaise. I made mayonnaise. I know how to make mayonnaise. So learning that skill was great for me because I knew, you know what? I want deviled eggs. And you know what? I know I can make mayonnaise. I guess I'm making mayonnaise, right? So I think having an ongoing rolling, like once a month, learn something from scratch you didn't know before. It's a great way to spend some time with your family, your kids, whatever, your friends, learning a new skill. And then you can decide if you really like to do it. I've made soap one time in my life. I have learned from that experience that I like buying soap from my friends who love to make soap. That's what I've learned. So that's the second like fundamental change I want to help people make is that proper pantry management, reasonable food storage. It's not hoarding. We need to let go of that perspective and start seeing it as a tool to bring yourself towards prosperity, to keep your time invested in taking care of your household lower, to enable you to spend less money on day-to-day things so that you can buy in lows rather than highs. And at the end of the day, doing that makes you more prepared to just stay home if it's snowing. Just stay home if a tornado hit and the world is ripped up. To just stay home if you need to stay home. You got everything you need anyway, right? Okay, third thing, take control of your health. Take control of your health. I am sitting here in front of you right now, in front of this mic, at 187 pounds. At my height, I was 210 pounds. When I started losing weight, I was 201 pounds. And if I had continued gaining 10 pounds a year for the next 10 years, I was going to end up with diabetes and a heart condition on a gurney with 3 guys trying to lift up my heavy ass body going to the hospital. Does that mean I won't have a heart attack later? No, I don't know. But I know this, we can take care of our health. And that means everything from keeping your nutrition in order by eating the right kinds of food and adding supplements that you need if you need them. I've had my blood work done. I need vitamin B and I need vitamin D on an ongoing basis or I get sick. Do you know how I discovered that? I got pneumonia. And then I couldn't recover from it. And 2 months later, I'm like, why? And they run blood work and they're like, wow, your vitamin B as in boy, really low. You better take vitamin B. I'm like, okay, I'll take vitamin B. And then I'm still sick. What's going on? They do my blood work and they call me and they're like, you need to get out in the sun. Your vitamin D is like the lowest I've seen. And I'm like, I'm on a walk in the sun right now. I'm in the sun for hours every day. What else do I need to do? And I started to take an absorbable liquid version of vitamin D. When I got those 2 things in balance, guys, I stopped getting colds and sick. I got sick again this year in January. Really, really sick. I think I had pneumonia again. Guess what? I had stopped taking my supplements. Take control of your health. You may fall down like I do. Like I literally started forgetting to take my vitamins and my reminder that was set on Alexa to just like remind me every day at noon to take them. I unplugged Alexa because she was bugging me on the podcast. I'd say Alexa and she'd like pop up right now and start talking to y'all. Yeah. And so then I started forgetting my supplements and then lo and behold, I got sick. It's amazing how nutritional balance really plays into that. And then of course, yeah, weight, exercise, nutrition. If you have a health condition, keeping it under control, right? All of those things are important. Take an active role in your health when you're at the doctor. Don't just like whatever they say. Doctors are doing the best they can, but they're doing educated guesses as well. And you may know your body better. And if you, in a reasonable way, talk to them about that, usually you can find a solution that works. When I had to have my heart evaluated once, and the doctor really didn't like my BMI. Um, and he wanted to put me on some drug that I'd be on for the rest of my life. I can't remember what it was. And I was like, let's try lifestyle change first. And he's like looking at me like eye roll, of course. Nobody ever does lifestyle change. Well, that's when I was 210 and I dropped to 201 and I stopped having the problem. So I made some other big changes too. But, I stopped caffeine for a month. I'm a coffee roaster. I stopped it for a month to see if it would work. It did not work. Thank God. I'd rather give up wine than coffee, just for the record. So, all of our health needs are different. When we take control of our health, we're in a good place. Right now, if you're home, it's the perfect time to add exercise every day to your life. There are so many ways you can do it. You can do like yoga on YouTube. If you can go for walks, I've been going for a walk every single day. I've been going for a walk, well, pretty much. I've missed a few days, but at least a 40-minute walk for me every single day, because I can take control of my health and I have time now, right? This is not the time to come out of the stay-at-home orders 15 pounds heavier. It's time to come out 5 pounds lighter, because you're able to get the exercise and you're able to get, if you've stored up the foods you eat, you're able to get proper nutrition. If not, do your best to get some vegetables in your diet, man. Okay, fourth thing is produce food at home. And this one I went back and forth on, because in a New York City apartment with 4 other people crammed in there, or in San Francisco, it ain't that easy to produce food at home versus if you're on a 3-acre homestead like I am, or if you're on a 20-acre farm, right? But then I thought, you know what? Everybody can produce food at home. You can take one mason jar and you can grow alfalfa sprouts at home. And it's just one thing, it takes up a little bit of room to store the seeds and that jar. Boom, you got fresh veg right now if you had that set up already, right? So there are lots of things you can do, from an indoor lettuce grow operation like I have. Like, Jenny has a whole bunch of mason jars, so I tried mason jars first for indoor lettuce, and I realized if I got a tub and had all the water in one thing, I could have more lettuce and less footprint. But mason jars work. Like mason jar, net cup, head of lettuce, food. Okay. Well, you can expand that to what I have now, which is a set of 4 shelves that are 2 feet wide, where I'm growing lots of lettuce and all sorts of stuff. But you don't have to. But that's something you can do. Microgreens. Like, I have been eating off my first tray of microgreens for days. Like for 5 days. I did borage, which sort of tastes like watermelon or cucumber. Very sharp taste. Beware. And that's really stretched my greens. It's been great. I did another round of right after it, I did black oil sunflower seeds. Had a terrible germination experience, but I'm going to have a little bit of that. Well, I just started broccoli and arugula today. So about every 7 days, I get this dense thing of microgreens. Well, okay, you can let it go longer and you have baby greens, right? Or you can do a lettuce grow. Like the microgreens don't even take the hydroponic approach we need. You just kind of keep it watered. It's it. And then if you have lights, you use lights. If you don't have lights, you use the sun. You do the best. I'm getting feedback from the online viewers on YouTube. Radish sprouts are awesome. I haven't done I meant to get radish seeds and haven't yet. I just need to. So I have broccoli, borage, and arugula, and I'm doing the broccoli and arugula right now on paper towels. I'm doing an experiment. So I'm using paper towels instead of dirt. We'll see how that goes. So, like all of that. The other thing it does, guys, is growing plant food at home teaches you a little bit more about how to do it and, trials and errors. So if you have to go quickly from I'm growing a few herbs on my windowsill to I need to do a lot more stuff in my garden, you understand how growing a plant works. And if you have that skill, you're way better off than some prepper who tucked away 100-year supply of seeds in a can and never even learned, step 1 about gardening, right? I have the seeds, but I don't know what to do with them. Yeah, that's not the way to go into this. Not at all. The other thing you can do if you're suburban or have a garage or something is livestock. You can grow quail for eggs. and they're birds that live in a cage. And if you have the stomach for it, you can process them. Rabbits are the same thing. You don't have to have them out and about. If you have a little bit more land, you can do something like add chickens for eggs. And, backyard chickens are a thing in some areas. And right now is the time to put pressure on local governments to allow backyard chickens. My friend on Facebook, who I will not mention, lives in a neighborhood that forbids chickens. She has 3 chickens, I think. And she posted a picture on the web on like week 1 of shutdown for them. She's like, I'm so glad I have illegal chickens right now. And she shares with her neighbors so they don't narc her out. So, sometimes you might need to push things a little bit. A garden is great if you can add a garden plot or just a front, or a back porch potted garden where you have a tomato in a pot or you have a pot with lettuce. My mom lives in a retirement community that has like really strict rules about what can be outside your house. And so she couldn't put a garden in. They have a potted garden in their little outdoor area that looks beautiful with some peas growing and lettuce and carrots and whatever they want. It's really cool. Tomatoes, nobody complains about it. They keep it looking nice and it's in pots, so it's temporary and it fits all of the things. So if you're one of those people though who is not in a situation where any of that works, like I know some of you are in apartments with terrible light and you don't have the money for grow lights. You can do community garden plot maybe, or get to know your farmers. Go to the farmers market, get to know them, say, "Hey, if you ever have way too many tomatoes one week because they all got ripe at the same time, let me know. I'll can them." So, producing food at home can be as simple as canning surplus when it's cheap, and then you have that store that helps your budget, teaches you how to process food so that then right now, when there's a situation where wholesalers couldn't sell tomatoes in Florida, so one of our listeners went and bought like for $15, 50 pounds, or I don't even know how much she got, 75 pounds for $15. She's got tomato sauce for like half a season or half a year. If at the rate I would use it, right? That's awesome for $15. That's like, that'll probably make her 30 jars minimum. 30 jars, I would say, of tomato, whatever. For $15, that's 50 cents a jar plus energy and input. Done. You've got a skill there. Just do something to produce food at home. It's kind of the same as learning that skill, right? Bake your own bread. Like, woo, your bread costs go down. It's amazing how that works. Okay, 5th thing is develop community service habits. This is the one I added when I was going to do 5 and then it became 6. We need to take care of our people. When this started, the best thing you could do besides be ready to stay home if you needed to stay home so you were not a tax or a burden on the system. And if you had food stored, not go shopping when people really needed to go shopping who were about to stay home for the first time in their lives, right? The next thing you should have done is figured out who's going to need my help nearby. And the way you do that is by getting to know people in your community physically, as well as in your, like in the LFTN community, we kind of check in on each other from time to time, right? So doing community projects and finding ways to help in your community as a habit puts you in a position to see where people need help. If our communities get through things like this with strength because we have helpers, we are less likely to melt down into a situation where people are in scarcity and they're desperate and they mug you just by giving a little. And a lot of people don't think about that. Like having a giving heart right now is more important than ever, even though there is some scarcity. That's why every time somebody has complained to me about toilet paper, I've said, "Do you need some?" Because I have some, right? I don't have an unlimited supply of toilet paper. I did not hoard 3 years of it. Although, there was one time I had a year put up. But I can give somebody a package of toilet paper if they need it. I don't need them to pay me a bunch of money for it. I can't give, 50 people, but I can give some people some toilet paper. And I think that's a much better response than "sucks to be you, use your hand." We could get there, I guess, and I'm sure we'd figure out other ways around it. Communities get through things. Individuals have a harder time. I think it's important that this be voluntary and not forced, but I think you can be that inspiration to others. And when more people are giving through a time like this, you make the whole community just makes it through the time better, right? Okay, then 6, this is last but not least, the biggest fundamental lifestyle change we need to make right now is to push back on centralized government programs. I know that sounds like big and esoteric. We have always needed to do this. The more centralized the program, the bigger negative impact it has had right now in this situation. If you look at our food system, it is set up that way through central planning through the federal government, implemented by the states. And it keeps the farmer from getting their food to me under the guise of safety. And what this has meant is that people are food unstable while farmers can't sell their stuff. And that's a load of crap. That should not be. And that is because of centralized government. And anybody who's saying no, it's not is wrong. And it's time to politely stand up and be like, no, actually, the reason you can't have that milk they're pouring on the ground is it's not pasteurized. And, 40 years ago, you could have bought that milk and we'd be able to do that right now. But the FDA's in our way and they're not rolling back even in a crisis. Even though I could buy unpasteurized raw milk that might have something in it, take it home and heat it up to 180 degrees and hold it there for 10 minutes and feel relatively safe about that food. Even though if there is salmonella in tomatoes, if you turn it into tomato sauce, you've killed the salmonella, right? If we know a little bit about how to handle food, A, we're better. B, that centralized system that's supposed to keep us safe does not. When there is a foodborne pathogen, because of the large distribution, it affects a lot more people than Farmer Joe down the street with his tomatoes. And more, it's making us food unstable now. And like if there is scarcity in August or September, which is probably when there would be as a result of this, it's because of centralized programming. It's because of the big guys pushing the little guys out through the force of government. It's because of farm subsidies. Sorry if you're somebody who gets one. That's part of the problem. If we subsidize corn production, we're not producing the things people really want, right? Same goes for our healthcare system. This is why we need socialized healthcare because of COVID. Okay, how did that work for you when the CDC was the monopolistic provider of the testing kits and then they messed it up with a capital F? Yeah, how did that work for you? Tests didn't even work. There was only one provider. Private clinics were not allowed to do it. Private labs were not allowed to create these. Didn't work too well, did it? Everybody's all mad about that. So we need more government controls. No, we need less. And now we're in a situation where we're going to start, quote unquote, opening the economy back up. We need to be voices out there talking about why maybe tracking everybody is not the answer. Forcing a tracking app on your phone. And maybe taxing people more so that we can have even more government control of healthcare is not a good idea. Maybe forcing people to live certain ways isn't a good idea, right? Maybe getting in the way of people accessing local food sources or new local food sources developing, getting in the way of that's actually bad. Centralized planning of that isn't working. We don't need another centralized program. If we can't find ways to talk about this in reasonable terms and not just like, you're an idiot, we don't need a centralized government, then we got problems. The liberty movement has been largely silent on these issues through all of this. I'm really disappointed. I'm really hoping some voices will come out. There have been very few voices saying, you know what? While I understand the need to help people stay safe, this is not the best way to do it. And the better non-centralized way is X. Nobody's saying that, or almost nobody. And I guess it's up to you and me to do it. Because what's not going to work is to have monopolistic controls of everything in society that we need, our food, our healthcare, our transportation, our fuel. If we have a government monopoly or any monopoly, really, I mean, the problem with government is monopoly, right? If we have that in any of these really important systems and there's any disruption to how it works, we fail. And we fail our most poor people, the ones who need it the most first. So those are my 6 things. What ideas do you have about fundamental lifestyle changes people should make in a post-COVID world? I'd be glad to hear it. You can drop that over on Facebook in the comments on the group or MeWe, or you can comment on livingfreeintennessee.com. I hope you enjoyed the show today. If you did, you can support the show in a couple of ways. One, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. And for all of you who have ordered coffee through this, I really appreciate it. I don't want any of you ordering coffee you can't afford, though. So I'm just going to make that clear back to point one about not going in debt. But I do appreciate it. Orders have been up a little bit the last 2 weeks, and that's been kind of awesome. The other way is to become a member over at livingfreeintennessee.com. I have 2 levels. The basic level, the biggest benefit that people are loving are these webinars. You get 2 webinars a year. I do 6 webinars a year. If you are a premium member at 120, you get all 6. Well, guess what happened? COVID happened, and I thought what I can do to give back right now is a webinar a week through April. And I can make it part of benefits for both benefit levels. Usually a webinar, if you just want to buy one's $50, 1 year of membership is $50. So head over to Living Free in Tennessee, click on membership and sign up. And right now, if you do that, you will find a link straight to the webinar that's happening tomorrow at noon, which are just 4 ways you can launch your spring garden in 2020. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. I was only supposed to talk for half an hour. I went more than half an hour, didn't I? Whoops. And yeah, they are shutting down meat plants. I still don't think that's going to hit the supply chain, other than people are now probably going to go rush out and buy meat. I don't think it's going to hit it for a while. So thanks for watching this, guys. As I said, today it was like pulling teeth. I don't know why. But sometimes the podcast is that way. And thanks for everybody who gave ideas for show topics that you're interested in hearing. I'm going to start asking that question more, because it's actually kind of nice to talk about what I know you want me to talk about. And I'll do that over on MeWe. So, yeah, it's been quite a week. And now, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back and look at my taxes some more. I hate taxes. Anyway, I'll have the show out in a few minutes.